right. Yeah, like I said yesterday, today I want to get this thing tore apart so we can figure out what all it's going to need, at least to get it operable. I'm not going to get too carried away. Like, all the bearings down the side and everything up here's fine. And the belts on the front are good. And you got to remember, I'm not going out and going to try to spread 1,000 acres with this thing. It's just got to spread a little bit. So we don't have to go whole hog on it right away. I just need to get it operable, because I'm trying to not spend a crap ton of money this year. Because stay, Peter might knock you. Because there's a couple pieces of ground I'd at least like to try to make an offer on next year. And if I'm gonna make an offer on them, I'd like to have most, if not all, of the cash on hand to just be able to buy it outright instead of having to try to borrow money against it. So I'm trying not to spend a bunch of money this year, which so far I haven't been doing too bad. Anyhow, I'm hoping this thing is short enough, which it should be. I don't think it's probably only about 7 foot tall. I don't think it's a whole lot taller than a pickup. I'm hoping this thing will go in the garage. It's actually fairly nice out today. I don't even know why I have my coat on. I don't really need it. But we keep getting some pretty substantial wind gusts, and that's just a little unhandy. So hopefully it will go in the shop. And I was looking at these things online the other day. I couldn't find one exactly like this, but I was looking at some of Chandler's new models, and a lot of the newer ones, at least the more expensive newer ones. I'm sure the base models, like what they're going to be selling the co-ops and stuff, still look like this, but the newer ones, the box is just brushed stainless, which this has got a stainless box on it, which is the other nice thing. So it's at least a higher end box. But the newer spreaders are a stainless box, just plain, not painted, and the frames are either green or red and the wheels are white. So if I repaint it, I think it'd look pretty sharp if I did it up like that. And the paint's already peeling on the box. I don't know the best way to get it off, because you're not going to want to sandblast it, otherwise you're going to etch the stainless. But if there was a nice non-invasive way to get the paint off of the box and just leave the box stainless, and paint the frame forest green and the wheels white, I think it'd look pretty sharp. But anyhow, we're getting way ahead of where first we need to get the thing working. Now, when I say this thing barely fits, I ain't shitting you. It's 90 inches tall, door's 95, and it's like 8'3" wide over the edges of the box. And that door's 9 foot without figuring in the weather stripping around it. So barely fits. That door would be a little better because that door's 10 foot wide, but Dad's got all the stuff in front of it. Yeah, Lordy. So anyhow, gearbox has got to come off, rotors have to come off, and I have to figure out how this comes out so that we can fix, replace whatever's going on here with your in and out adjustment, because that affects your spread pattern. Those belts are actually in good shape. Those belts not so much. When I used it last spring before they parked it, because I found out that this thing was it was spreading like this. The top belt, I remember right, the top belt would stay on, but the bottom one would kick off. So I spread out a whole load with it like this, because once you got it loaded, you got to get rid of it somehow. So that was fun. I see we still got some fertilizer going on there, so once I get it tore apart, we'll have to get it power washed. But there'll be a few things needing some attention, but that can happen at a later date. For now, we just got to get it working. Okay, I think it's safe to say that there is no being nice to this thing when it comes to getting it apart, so we're just skipping right to liquid wrench. So yeah, get these bearings cut loose first. We'll get this stuff taken off the back, and then we'll tackle the gearbox. The gearbox shouldn't be too terrible because of the stainless bolts. However, that's got to come off beforehand, and that's not going to come off. There's nope, not happening. That's not, yeah, nah. So we'll have to tackle or cross that bridge when we get to it. But first we'll do this. Also, I noticed we're low on acetylene, so we'll see how that works out. Hopefully I don't run out before I'm done. Well, I shouldn't have done that. Shit stuck in the mixer valve. There we go. Rust doesn't torque very well. Screw it, I'm cutting them belts off. They're getting replaced anyhow, and they are most definitely in the way. Alright, I think I got all the bolts off enough, so, and I'm not worried about hurting the pulleys because they're getting replaced anyhow. Oh, wow. What's this? No, that's, never mind. That's a lot of crust. Oh, look at that, the bearing's freed up. We're good to go. Throw some bolts back in them, boys. Okay, I squirreled for a minute. Luckily, this freed up, and I'm not 100% sure what all that grown-up rust was on it, because it freed up. The threads are still good. It adjusts like it's supposed to. And I took a hammer and smacked all the rust off, expecting this whole thing to just crumble away. And it appears to be stainless underneath it, so I don't know. I mean, it's a hex profile. I don't know what exactly, unless there was some sort of metal, I don't know. But we can now get this part out of the way. Like I say, I squirreled. I was like, luckily, these are stainless bolts, which, because this is going to be mine forever now. When we put all this stuff back together, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go buy a bunch of stainless bolts to put it all back together so we don't ever have to get the gas axe out again. In theory. When you're working with fertilizer, you're going to get it out no matter what, but it makes you feel better. Don't, and the ones like the higher end spreaders probably are built with all stainless hardware. The reason that this probably has steel hardware in it to begin with is probably because it was bought by a co-op, so they were going to buy the cheapest option package you could get. But I don't know why anyone would not want stainless fasteners on every single thing if it's going to touch fertilizer. For serviceability alone. The time and money you're going to save not having to buy torch gas or cutting wheels for a grinder, and the time you're going to save not having to cut things apart. Oh, that's long. That's long. There we go. It's gonna make me get a little more rowdy with it. What about this one? Will this one come loose? Gotta do. Okay. And here is the biggest thing that kills fertilizer spreaders or anything that touches fertilizer in general. Is this flaky rust right here. I mean, fertilizer in general is just hard on stuff, but when you let the paint get bad, which is what started all of this, well, a lack of, like you can see that's all fertilizer piled up right there, but not getting washed, which this obviously didn't get washed because they weren't planning on keeping it. And Ryan actually told me, he said we're kind of skimping on the maintenance on them a little bit because we really want to get rid of them, and the more we can, or the worse shape they are, the easier it is to convince the higher ups that they need new spreaders. So the last few years they basically did the bare minimum to keep them running, specifically as to use as a leverage to be able to get new ones. But anyhow, you don't keep them washed up, and you start getting scratches and stuff in the paint, and then the fertilizer can get back in and start popping the paint off the metal, and then you start getting flaky stuff like that, and it starts flaking and growing, and as it expands it creates cracks for more water and more fertilizer to get into, and it just keeps going and going and going. So it's kind of what I'm trying to do right now, is go around and knock as much of that off as I can. It'll tell you two things. It'll tell you how good the metal still is, which surprisingly, the way it's thudding, there is still a fairly decent amount of structural integrity back here, so I don't think it's like we're gonna have to replace a whole lot. But the more of that crap you can get knocked off, even if you don't throw any more paint on it, which in this state, throwing paint on it is a lost cause because it ain't gonna stick, and there's still gonna be, unless you sandblast it down to bare metal and do a good job of it, there's still gonna be fertilizer residue in all the pits and stuff here, and it's just gonna start growing behind the paint. And actually, if you threw paint on it right now to try to protect it, it would be worse than just leaving it bare. So, but I'm gonna knock some more rust off here, and but I mean, it sounds good, and I'm not punching any holes in it, so that's a good sign. Well, it took some major carnage, and it wasn't fun carnage because cast does not torch well at all. And that's obviously a cast iron pulley, but we got this loose. Oh, come on. I do believe that's still good to use. Lay a little bead of weld in there, do some grinding. Oh yeah, we're golden. Same with that. We can just do some brazing on that and a little bit of grinding. It'll be great. Let's work some of this rust down there into that gearbox. Can't make it any worse, right? All right, hopefully. Oh, I guess before I unbolt it, we also need to see if we can fight this universal off. It's oily enough that hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll just come loose, but I don't have very high hopes. Well, long story short, it did not come right off. I knew I was in bad shape when I went to clean the set screws out so I get an Allen wrench in them, and there was no set screws. So I had to take the entire drive line loose, and because I couldn't get both sides heated and keep them hot to just be able to drive the universal off and slide it back on the shaft, which it probably wouldn't slid back on that shaft anyhow. But it was worth a shot, but I couldn't keep them both hot, so I'd take the whole drive shaft loose so I could heat just the one side. Then I took an air hammer and beat off of that one and pulled the shaft out of the universal. So I don't know how I'm going to get it off the gearbox, but we can cross that bridge when I get it off the spreader. But just initial looking at all this, I think before I put too much effort into tearing stuff further apart than what it already is, I'm just going to call and find out if I can get a complete gearbox, because I don't think there's any save to this one. I don't think it'll hold a seal anymore. I don't think it'll hold a bearing. I think this gearbox is just junk, and it's crusty enough. It could just, I don't think there's any save to it without some major remachining and basically making a new gearbox out of it, which is going to be a little cost prohibitive. But see what it's going to cost to get a whole new gearbox and 2 complete spinner assemblies with stainless pans, because those are just steel pans. See what it costs to get them in stainless, because I know they make them in stainless, because these shafts are all ate up. I mean, they're probably okay where the bearing and the pulley ride, but if I can just get 2 complete assemblies ready to bolt on and a complete gearbox ready to bolt on, and all we have to do is bolt everything back on and put belts back on, because these pans are crusty and they're, I mean, just even knocking on them, they sound like they're ready to break. So, and my long-term plan was to put stainless slinger pans on it anyhow, just to eliminate one more possible area of rust. But if we got to do it right now, we might as well do it right now, even if it costs me, I'd hope to think I could do this, or I think tongue-tied. I'd hope that it's less than $1,000 worth of parts, because it should be pretty at least the spinners and stuff I would believe are pretty standard off-the-shelf stuff. I can't believe the new spreaders have changed a whole lot. The gearbox might be the expensive part, but if they buy and use enough of them, they might, that's one of them deals where it's probably cheaper to just, they probably buy enough of them that they get a good enough deal on them that it's probably cheaper to go right through them than to try to find one third party. But it's just a 90-degree gearbox, and I believe that it's probably a 1-to-1 ratio. So, but that can, because unfortunately there's no tag on it, but maybe. Anyway, if push come to shove, I don't think it would be hard to find a different gearbox that will do the same thing. Just to probably have to change the bracketry, but I gotta believe that Chandler still carries this stuff. It's just a matter of, I gotta figure out what model it is. I don't think it's on the sticker, because that sticker can be used on multiple spreaders. So I gotta figure out what model it is, so that B, I can get a parts book, so that C, we can order parts. And actually I can go down, Ryan said I could just go down there for now and we can just get, I mean, it'd be nice if I could just sweet talk them out of a book, if they got multiples. But Ryan said go down there and we can look through the book and figure out what all I need, and I think that just ordering new is going to be easier and quicker and probably cheaper in the long run than trying to save all this crap. But the reason I'm rambling on is I'm letting that universal cool down so that I don't burn myself handling it, trying to get the gearbox off. So let me give that a little bit more time to come down to a reasonable temperature, and once that's off, we're pretty much done with what it needs to be in here for. The other thing that'll have to get worked on, it doesn't have to happen right now because they're still biting, but I'm going to have to change the gears on that shaft. I think the rails are good enough, but you're going to have to change them gears at some point. There's enough of them there for now that they're working, but that's going to have to be addressed. All right, I think that's all we need off of here for now. Now it just needs a bath, which I will do at a later date before we go to put it back together. Like I say, hopefully I can just get all new crap for it. But eventually this is all going to need some attention in here. And so, but I'm going to get this pulled out of here, and then just for shits and giggles, I kind of want to pull that gear, or pull the side cover off that gearbox just to see if the bolts will even, I mean, those bolts might snap off. Actually, those bolts ain't coming out. There ain't no way in hell. I'm actually impressed that the side cover even holds the oil in still. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I don't think there's any save to that gearbox. There's nothing left to save. Holy shit. I'd still like to get it apart just to see what the inside looks like, but I don't know if you're gonna get it apart. Because those are the bolts. Like there's nothing to even get a hold of. Holy cow. And it does have a little tin bottom cover to it too, but you ain't getting that off neither. Or maybe that is it might not be tin, but either way you're not getting it off. And so I don't even know if we're going to be able to get that thing apart. But let me get this pulled out of here, and we might give her the good old college try just for shits and giggles to see what kind of carnage is inside there. So there's my rust pile. That's my boot for size. I bet that thing lost 50 pounds. And here's the... Oh boy. I started knocking rust off of it, and I was scared I was just going to eat a hole right through the side cover. But I think if we cut the heads off these bolts with a grinder, and then take an air hammer with a chisel tip on it, and maybe hit the side of it, maybe it'll come apart. Maybe. I don't have very high hopes, but I'm kind of curious. All right, the moment of truth. Well, that's kind of a shame that the rest of the housing's in such bad shape, because the gear's pretty much perfect. I was honestly expecting a lot worse out of that. I mean, there's not even any chipped teeth. It's actually pretty decent in there. Come on, slide up past, dang ya. If I could get this thing back up kind of where it belongs. Makes you wonder how the heck it even got slipped past it. Oh, maybe. Okay, now that you're up there, surely. Ooh, this stuff smells terrible. There we go. Alright, it's good. slap it back together, let's roll. I just don't know how much you could trust the structural integrity of the gearbox. I mean, there's nothing left of that cover. A couple more little rust chunks come out. She's full of pinholes. So, anyhow, I guess I'll leave this on here for now until I know once I know for certain. I mean, I'm gonna have to do something different for a gearbox either way, because you can't reuse this thing. This is terrible. Like I say, you knock it around a few times, it's gonna be full of pinholes, it's gonna be unusable. But once I know what I can get for parts, then I can probably just zip this shaft off and get it out of here without hurting the universal, and we can save the universal and go from there. So I guess I'm gonna get my mess cleaned up and go in and get this video put together for you guys, and I might go home and mess around in the woods for a little while since it's nice out and kind of stuck for projects for the rest of the afternoon. So anyhow, we'll see what tomorrow brings as far as what I can get for parts. I got bearings coming for the wheel bearings coming for the applicator cart. I didn't have any luck on the internet cross-referencing those Chicago Rawhide seals, which Chicago Rawhide is now owned by SKF. So, but I couldn't get those numbers cross-referenced even on their website, so I'm gonna have to go to an actual bearing dealer and see what they can do for me as far as cross-referencing the seal. But I got I got cups and cones coming. I actually managed to get actual Timken bearings, and I think Timken might actually have an Amazon store, near as I could tell by what I was finding. But I found actual Timken cups and cones, $90 for all 8 pieces. So, and I think that was too bad for actual Timken bearings. So like I say, I just got to get the seals. The axle's cut, it's laying down there in the pile ready to go. So tomorrow Dad was going to look for steel so we can make the end flanges and stuff, and I guess tomorrow I'll do some digging as far as what parts are going to be available for this guy. And we'll go from there. So that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one. If anybody wants any rust, let me know. Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'll ship it to you for free.